The building didn't feel like mine anymore. It was the same gray lobby, the same flickering fluorescent lights, but today, not a single good morning, not even a nod. I walked past coworkers who used to beg me to back them up in meetings, now suddenly fascinated by their screens or coffee lids. My heels echoed down the hall like they were announcing my exit. My desk, mostly bare, had one thing left, my father's old black ceramic mug. Faded letters said, "Speak softly, but carry a big stick." I used to think it was just something he liked from the Marines. Now I understood. He was telling me how to survive in places like this. I sat down and took a slow breath. My resignation letter, written but never truly mine, had been encouraged. A week ago, I walked into a meeting with the regional director, expecting a performance review. I left with a smile nailed to my face and a quiet order to consider stepping aside with grace. No scandal, no headline. Just silence, like a page torn out without a sound. I wasn't going to cause a scene, but I wasn't going to walk out a ghost either. It came out of nowhere. We were wrapping up the final team meeting. I was going over transition plans, handing off client accounts. Everything was mechanical, rehearsed. And then Dana stood up. "You know," she said real loud, "it makes sense she's leaving. I mean, snakes do shed their skin eventually." The room froze. I blinked, not sure I'd heard right. I looked around. Nobody spoke. Not Mike, not the regional director, who suddenly found something fascinating in his coffee. Just that awful pause where people pretend they didn't hear something because acknowledging it means taking a side. Dana smiled, like she'd just dropped the punchline at a birthday party. And me? I stood there, stunned, like someone had knocked the wind out of me without touching me. Snakes? She didn't just insult me. She labeled me manipulative. Untrustworthy. And the worst part, I'd spent years mentoring her, late nights, coaching her through client losses. I covered for her when she screwed up, even when I knew I'd get burned. The snake, huh? I remember thinking, I didn't deserve that. Not after everything I covered up for her. I took the long way back to my desk that morning, walked by marketing. No one made eye contact. Past HR. Got a half-hearted best of luck, like they were talking to someone who got fired for sleeping on the job. I peeked into the break room. Empty. Like the building wanted me out before I made it awkward. I'd been here nearly a decade, saved $2 million contracts, pulled the team through that market crash in 2020, once stayed 3 nights in the office when half the systems crashed during a product recall, and now, just a quiet funeral without flowers. I stopped by the window. Dana was laughing with the interns, sitting at what used to be my desk when I started. She looked comfortable. Too comfortable. That laugh. That seat. She wanted this for a long time. She didn't climb the ladder. She knocked me off it. There was something I never told anyone. 3 years ago, Dana lost our biggest client, Monarch Retail. She misread the brief, ignored follow-up emails, and completely botched the campaign. They pulled out. It should have been her end. But she came crying, scared, ashamed. Told me her mom was sick, that she wasn't sleeping, that she was sorry. I took the fall. I told upper management the brief got lost in my inbox, wrote the apology letter, said we'd do better. They reprimanded me, verbally, told me I'd better not slip again. Dana? She got promoted the next quarter. She used that silence, grew close to leadership, started copying them on every little success, created her narrative, climbing the ranks, all on her own. I gave her a ladder, I thought, and she pulled it up behind her. Now I had a choice. Leave quietly, or speak up. She came over around 10:15, casual, like she wasn't the one who publicly humiliated me. I guess the snake finally slithered away, she grinned. I didn't look up right away. Let the silence settle. Then I turned to her. I've been quiet for too long. Her smile froze. You know silence doesn't mean guilt, right? I said. It just means I was giving you space to be better. She tilted her head, that fake confusion she wore when she knew exactly what you meant. You should be careful with your expense reports, I added. Some of those charges, they don't line up, and you've been claiming full-day meetings when you were in Arizona, at a spa. Her face dropped. You wouldn't dare. I stood, smoothed my blazer. Check your email, I said. Legal's copied. And then I walked away. As I reached the elevator, I heard her gasp, but I never looked back. I didn't head straight to my car. Instead, I took a left, down the side hallway no one used unless something was broken or forgotten. The carpet here was older, a little more worn. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead like they were thinking twice about staying on. There was no chatter, no printer humming, no footsteps, just that strange, humming stillness, like the building itself had chosen not to watch me leave. The server room hadn't changed. Same keypad code. No one had thought to revoke my credentials yet. I swiped in. I didn't come back for revenge. That's what people always assume. Women like me must be out for blood. No, I came for the truth. Or at least, the parts of it they hadn't bothered to erase. Dana had bragged about it a few weeks ago, how they'd cleaned the slate. Her exact words, like she thought everything she did could just vanish if no one remembered it. I did, and I'd saved it. Tucked away inside a nearly forgotten directory was a folder labeled FY 2021, Error Logs. I'd encrypted it myself, back when I still believed in protecting the team. Back when I thought mistakes could be learned from, not buried. I clicked it open. There they were, financial projections that didn't add up, graphs that jumped without basis, budget allocations that got moved without the meetings to justify them, and then one email, just one, that Dana begged me to delete. She'd called it a draft, but we both knew it was more than that. It was her approving a spend that never got accounted for. The more I read, the more my stomach didn't twist. It solidified, cold, clear, still, like settling into an idea I'd been circling for too long. I slid the flash drive into the port, transferred everything, one file at a time. They thought I left quietly, I whispered. But I just left the door open. I left a single note in my old digital folder. Not for them. For myself. Silence is not complicity. This is my firewall. The door clicked shut behind me when I left the server room. HR was waiting. Same beige conference room, same off-brand bottled water on the table. Linda, the HR rep, smiled like she was trying to calm a nervous guest on an airplane. So, she began, any final words for how we can improve company culture? I looked at the little checklist in front of her. 3 bullet points. 1 pen. Accountability, I said, doesn't mean public flogging, but it does mean memory. People should know the truth, even when it's not convenient. She nodded like that made sense, but her eyes flicked back to the form. She was already moving on. She handed me a mug with the company logo. A small token of appreciation. I took it, turned it in my hand. It reminded me of something Dana once hissed at me under her breath. You're just the office mom, with a spine. I placed the mug gently back on the table and walked out. Just before the elevator doors shut, someone called out behind me. Miss James? I turned. It was Bryce, one of the interns from last summer. Wide-eyed, holding a stack of papers. I wanted to say thank you, he stammered, holding up a proposal I'd helped him fine-tune last quarter. No one ever gave me feedback like that. It mattered. I felt something tighten behind my ribs. People like Dana, they chase spotlights. People like me, we hold the flashlight. He stepped closer. Is this about that meeting? I smiled, not bitter, not sad. I'm leaving because silence stopped being the best option. He nodded like he understood. I hope he did. Out in the parking lot, I opened my trunk, sat on the edge, and pulled out my personal laptop. It booted slower than I remembered. Or maybe my patience had shortened. I logged into a secure whistleblower portal, one I'd bookmarked over a year ago but never touched. I didn't just dump the files. I labeled everything. Cross-referenced timelines, added context, uploaded meeting notes, and summarized them. This wasn't about revenge. This was record-keeping. I didn't name Dana. But the dates, the approvals, the unexplained spikes, they pointed exactly where they needed to. As the last file uploaded, a green box popped up. Upload complete. I closed the lid. You wanted silence, I said to no one in particular. I brought receipts. Monday morning came quieter than I expected. I brewed my coffee like I had nowhere to be because I didn't. No alarms, no commute, no spreadsheets waiting. Just my small home office, the faint ticking of the wall clock, and a strange hollowness that hovered behind the calm. Retirement, if you could call it that, tasted like microwaved leftovers. Reheated freedom isn't fresh. I sat at the desk, thumbing through emails from my personal account, a recruiter, a consulting firm, an old friend asking if I was really done. I wasn't sure what I was yet, but I knew I wasn't finished. That's when the voicemail alert blinked red. Blocked number, voice cold, professional. This is legal counsel from Beckett Horn. We need a word. No warmth, no small talk, no details. I stared at the phone for a long second before I hit replay, listened again, then once more, just to hear the subtle threat buried in the tone. Well, I whispered, more to the quiet than myself. That was faster than expected. I pulled up the files I'd sent on Friday, checked the timestamps, the summaries, the audit trails. Nothing illegal, nothing slanderous, just data. Still, I knew what they were doing. They weren't trying to stop the truth. They were trying to make it forgettable. I called Eulalia Frost, used to be in legal before she jumped ship last year. She picked up on the second ring. I was wondering when I'd hear from you, she said. Her voice wasn't surprised, just tired. I gave her the broad strokes. She gave me caution. They can't accuse you outright without implicating themselves. But Sylvie, be careful who's watching your cloud folders. That landed heavier than I thought it would. After we hung up, I checked my old LinkedIn profile. Not my page, my company's version of it. The one they controlled. My work history had changed. Subtle edits. Project dates pushed. Job titles shaded differently. Accomplishments omitted. They weren't just burying me, they were editing me out of the story entirely. I needed air. I grabbed my bag and keys and drove across town to Bryce's co-working space. I hadn't planned to see him, but instinct sometimes shows up uninvited. The space was small, modern murals, leafy plants, open desks, buzzing young energy. He was there, hunched over a laptop, earbuds in. He looked up when he saw me. A flicker of surprise, then something else, unease. Hey, he said, pulling one earbud out. Weird timing. Someone from corporate called me yesterday, said they were just checking in, wanted to know if we'd been in touch. Did you tell them anything? I said you helped me with a pitch, that's all, but it felt off, like they were fishing. I sat across from him. Don't let them pull you into this. I'm not asking you to speak up for me. Just don't let them write my story without checking the facts. He nodded, but I could see the tension in his jaw. The pressure on young shoulders already learning how heavy silence can be. You always talked about courage, he said, but you also played it careful. Which one wins? Neither, I told him. What matters is knowing when each one's needed. I stood to go. If they ask, just tell them I never lied. As I walked back to my car, my mind drifted. Not to the call, not to the edits, not even to the files I had locked away. I thought of Dana. Years ago, at a client dinner, she'd made a joke about menopause, mine, in front of 2 board members and a room full of men. I had laughed, raised my wine glass, made it seem like water off a duck's back. But that night, I cried in the hotel bathroom. Every time I swallowed my voice, I handed her the script. Now, I was taking it back. Back home, I started drafting. Not an article, a timeline. Each moment, each slight, each decision I made to stay quiet. If they were going to paint me dangerous, I'd at least be deliberate. Later that evening, I drove to the bank and placed a printed copy of the whistleblower summary in a sealed envelope, locked it in my safe deposit box, just in case. Then I sat on my porch, drink in hand, watching the neighbor's kid wobble down the sidewalk on a too-big bicycle. He hit a crack, tipped sideways, hit the pavement. His mom ran over, panicked, trying to lift him before he even stood. But the boy stood on his own, bloody knee and all. Nobody learns without falling. But we never teach them what to do when someone pushes them off the bike. That night, I didn't feel angry. I felt ready, not to burn it down, to remember exactly where the matches were kept. The walk from my car to the front door felt colder than usual. The day had dragged itself into evening, shadows thickening in corners. My house was quiet, silent in a way that made every creak loud. I flicked the lamp on, poured tea, sat at the kitchen table, and pulled up my email feed. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from that tightening that precedes confrontation. The upload still glowed, complete. No errors. But a flicker in my screen hue caught my eye, a forwarded link from a friend. My company's website had altered my professional bio. My years, my projects, they'd shifted them. It was subtle, a rewrite of history. But the intent was clear: erase me without making an announcement. They don't just want me gone, they want me erased. I picked up my journal, blank pages waiting, and let my fingers bleed out a counter-narrative. Names, dates, things I had never voiced aloud. I sketched the edges, vague, but solid enough to build a wall around my truth. Coffee in hand, I met Zariah in a small cafe off Main. The smell of roasted beans and muted chatter contrasted sharply with what she told me. "People are saying you left under a cloud," she said, sliding a phone across the table with a forwarded email. "We all knew she was unstable." Gossip, rumors, poison in ink. She hesitated. "I didn't forward it." Her voice cracked. I let silence sit, then I said, "Truth is the antidote to rumor." That felt like a slogan once. Now it felt like a weapon. We talked strategy. "Proof capsules," I told her. "Not an explosion, just carefully selected files dropped into trusted hands. Enough to show, not destroy." We sat in quiet as I watched Dana walk past the window outside, poised, calm, unmoved, as though nothing had changed, even though everything had. I returned to my archives, logged in again, opened the folder I'd downloaded. There, a meeting transcript where my father, Gideon, said, "Don't let politics waste the product." That phrase, so familiar, was placed in the public record as an offhand remark. Then Dana had made a request right afterward. In the public minutes, that conversation vanished. They didn't just lie in real time, they rewrote time. I built side-by-side comparisons. I bookmarked them. I whispered, "You can edit a page, but you can't erase the margin notes." Later that evening, I walked down marble halls to Beckett Horn's offices. Their law firm threatened me with missing proof. Now I confronted them. Cassian Thorne, legal agent, looked surprised to see me in person. "You threatened me without cause," I began. "Tell me what evidence you claim to hold." I watched his eyes flicker. He tried to dodge. He murmured about vendettas and stories. I pressed, "I'm not telling a story. I'm restoring fact." He leaned in. "Be careful. Courts don't like spectacle." Maybe. But sometimes spectacle is the only glare strong enough to light a shadow. Before bed, I remembered years ago when Dad handed me a blank check for a project. No questions, pure trust. I remembered thinking he never doubted me, never questioned my drive or methods. Now that trust felt like betrayal. I reset the rules. No wild leaks, no dramatic reveals, precise drops, trusted allies only. I set my phone on the nightstand, watched its screen go dark. I lay back and breathed deep. No anger, no vengeance, just resolve. I would let the truth carve its own path. I got the text just after noon. Naomi's name blinked on my screen like a reminder I hadn't asked for. "Drop by if you're free. Just family stuff." No time, no occasion, no reason. I stared at it. My sister wasn't the type to do spontaneous anything, unless it was rehearsed. Still, I went. I don't know if it was hope or curiosity that pushed me to change out of sweats and into something plain, but decent. I told myself maybe it really was just lunch. Maybe they wanted me there. Maybe this was love, not strategy. The sky didn't agree. It was gray. Heavy. The kind of weather that didn't pour, just lingered above you like it was waiting. By the time I pulled into Naomi's driveway, my stomach had already done the math. My name wasn't in the group chat when this lunch got planned. She opened the door with a too bright smile, cheeks pinched just a bit too high. "Glad you made it," she said. The living room was tidy. The scent of rosemary chicken floated through. Classical music in the background, just enough to signal control, but the warmth in the room, It was the kind that only reached skin deep. The dining table was already set when I stepped in. Napkins folded, place cards written in metallic gold. Except mine. I stood at the edge, scanning names. Everyone had a seat but me. Naomi caught my glance and waved it off. Just sit wherever, your family. That line, the way she said it, light, dismissive, like I'd overreact just by noticing. I ended up next to Cousin Everett. We hadn't spoken more than 3 sentences in 5 years. The seat closest to Naomi? Saved for someone else. The conversation floated around me. Projects, vacations, gym routines, children. All the usual fluff, but not a whisper about what had happened to me the last week. They didn't avoid it out of politeness. They avoided it because it was planned. And sometimes, silence isn't absence. It's coordination. It happened just as dessert hit the table. Naomi stood, smiling with that stage-ready energy. I've asked someone really special to join us. She's been helping me with a new venture. The back patio door slid open. Dana, she walked in like it was her living room. Simple blouse, hair soft around her shoulders, styled to seem effortless. But I knew better. There was no surprise in me. My pulse didn't jump. It dropped. This wasn't a surprise. It was confirmation. She smiled like we were old schoolmates, not former co-workers who'd burned bridges over unpaid invoices and quiet sabotage. To reinvention, she said, raising her glass, and second chances for those who take risks. Most folks clinked. Some didn't know better. Naomi beamed. I raised my glass too, smirked. Some people toast, while others set the fire. After the plates were cleared, I found myself alone in the kitchen, rinsing dishes like I needed to prove I wasn't bothered. She followed. Of course she did. Helping with cleanup, she said, like that cleared her name. Her voice was warm, fake warm. Let it go, Sylvie. You made your point. You had your say. I didn't flinch. You didn't just burn a bridge, Dana. You mailed me the match in a thank you card. She leaned against the counter. If you escalate this, people will stop seeing you as a truth teller. They'll see you as bitter. Obsessive. The water ran hot over my fingers. You're not the threat, I said quietly. You're the proof. She didn't reply, just watched me like she was still trying to figure out how much I knew. Sometimes, it's not the words that hang in the room. It's what stays unsaid, thick like steam. On my way out, Naomi caught me at the car. Her arms crossed, jacket clutched like a shield. She's helping with my expansion, she said before I asked anything. It's not personal. Helping? I raised an eyebrow. Even when she cuts people's legs out from under them? She's good at what she does. And you think I'm overreacting, she sighed. Maybe some people take business too personally. I looked her in the eye. And maybe some people confuse silence with surrender. I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a scene. But when I pulled away from the curb, I knew exactly what that lunch had been. Not family, not reconciliation, just theater. That evening, I came home quieter than usual, the weight of whispers trailing behind me. I peeled off my coat, set my bag on the sofa, and paused at the doorstep. Something was there. A box. No return address. No note. Just a brown package staring at me like it belonged. I carried it inside, heart ticking uneven. I set it on the kitchen island and sat before opening. Inside was a gift set, a leather notebook and a sleek pen engraved with, "To the one who led us." My stomach knotted. That pen wasn't unfamiliar. I flipped open the notebook. A faint watermark matched the altered slides from the company site. Someone had rebranded what was mine. They're not even hiding their signature, I muttered. I texted Orson. His reply came within minutes. Yes, I prototyped that gift set for you when you wanted something for the team. I still have one. I pressed the pen between thumb and finger. Symbolic theft. My identity, my work, being pillaged and passed off. I debated destroying it, burning it, smashing it, but then decided to keep it, as proof. Later, I drove into town to the corporate lounge where Cassian had asked to meet. But first, I needed to see how far they'd paraded this fake tribute. In the reception area, I spotted them. Dana and Rowena, side by side, chatting, both holding the same gift set. Mine, repurposed. A slow pulse. My brain calibrated. They spoke softly. Brand alignment. Legacy reimagined. As if they had simply rearranged letters. They didn't know I was there. That was the point. Their ambush was in plain sight. My resolve hardened. I leaned against a pillar, silent, watching them discuss stewardship of a legacy that no longer bore my name. Dana flipped her phone. "Yes, it's delivered," she said, voice casual. "Let's see how she takes it." Rowena leaned in. "If she reacts too loud, our narrative tips." I understood then. The gift was a grenade disguised as gratitude, a trap in polished wrapping. And I closed the distance, stepped into their peripheral view, and murmured loud enough, "Elegance doesn't excuse theft." They jolted. Rowena's mask cracked. Dana's smile almost faded. Without looking back, I nodded once and walked away. I didn't wait for an answer. Outside in my car, I opened the voice memo app and pressed record. I replayed their lounge conversation, time-stamped in my own voice, the proof of orchestration. I sent it to Cashin. "You asked, here's your call." Then I deleted any trace of the gift files from my device. No loose ends. No breadcrumbs linking to me. I stared ahead at the road ahead. Inside me, I vowed. This would be the last time I tolerated a disguised blow. Box still in my lap. Gift still in its casing. A quiet declaration. I pulled away into dusk. I sat in the dim light of my living room, a glass of untouched water sweating on the table. My laptop screen glowed in the corner. I logged into the old internal chat system, a place I hadn't dared to revisit since they locked me out officially. But somehow, one back door still worked. I typed keywords. Phase out. Sylvie. Redundant. Nothing for a moment. Then, there it was. A thread buried in the operations channel, dated months before I was ever approached about restructuring, senior staff, names I trusted. One of them joked, "Is the sales head still strategic or just symbolic?" Another replied, "We'll just phase her out softly, she won't notice." Laugh emojis, thumbs up. I stared, not shocked, just hollowed. That was it. The seed. The moment whisper became motion. I downloaded the full thread, archived it twice, and backed it up to an encrypted folder. That's where the whisper became a plan, I muttered, voice tight in my own throat. I called Eulalia Frost. She picked up on the second ring, voice sharp and polished like always. PR never sleeps. "Eulalia, it's Sylvie." Silence. "I need to ask if you've seen the internal threads circulating, the ones that predate the new branding language. "I don't comment on internal memos," she said, crisp. "You're not just a bystander, Eulalia. You're shaping the press language. And that memo? It reads like a script." Another pause. Then she said slowly, "You'll need absolute proof." "I have it," I said. "And I'm ready." The line went dead right after that. I set the phone down. My hands didn't shake this time. No more graceful exits. No more pretending we were ever all on the same team. I opened the folder labeled Dad, Archive. Scrolled, found it, his old voicemail, saved from years ago, just after a big quarter closed. His voice, calm and proud. "You are the heart of this company. Not because you work hard, but because people follow your lead." I let it play again, quietly. And then again. Dana had tried to reframe me as a side figure, a logistical support. She erased my title in meetings, reworded speeches, redefined my role to mean less, always just slightly less. But he had named me, clearly, before anyone else wrote anything down. The contrast gutted me, a father's faith, and a niece's revision. My chest tightened, not grief, fury, a rage so still it almost felt cold. That one line, "You are the heart of this company," became the spine in me. I sat at the kitchen table and opened a new email draft. 5 addresses, 5 journalists, all seasoned. None of them owed the company favors. Subject line, Legacy audit, internal proof attached. I included the chat thread, the rebranded gift token, time-stamped transcripts from the lounge. I attached old press releases with original names, all aligned, all traceable. I stared at the send button for a while. Sent now, they'd scramble, rewrite the narrative, maybe get ahead of me, too late, and I'd lose momentum. I scheduled it for midnight. The system confirmed it. Then I typed one final line under my signature. Let the market judge what they cannot deny. I grabbed my phone, typed Dana's number, no pleasantries. We should have talked this through. Now, I have a mic louder than your edits. No response. I imagined her standing in some sleek condo, frozen, watching my name land in her inbox like a stone through glass. I stood at the window. The city lights didn't blink. I didn't blink. Tonight, I whispered. Ghosts become witnesses. I sat alone in my apartment at midnight, the only light a pale glow from my laptop screen. Outside, the night was uncommitted, neither wind nor rain, just silence. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Doubts whispered, what if they block it? What if they delete it before it shows? My throat narrowed. I opened the whistleblower portal. Chat logs, contract evidence, audio recordings, all lined up. I attached them, one by one. Each keystroke felt heavy, like loading rounds for a long fight. My pulse hammered. I reminded myself, it's no longer about me. This is about the truth. With a final breath, I hit Publish to Media Partners Internal Group. The progress bar crept forward. Green. Complete. My heart thundered. No turning back now. Within minutes, my name was everywhere. Company chat groups buzzed. The leaked materials trended internally. Someone posted a headline, "Is this what they did to Sylvie all along?" Comments poured in, some shock, some outrage, some retweets of her prior applause. Dana's social media went into spin mode. Her posts, vague, defensive, statements that these leaks are distorted edits. Rowena's PR team rushed an email. We reject these exaggerated claims. I watched quietly as those I once mentored, junior staff, began posting support. She always had our backs, one comment read. We saw her when others ignored. I sat straight and whispered, they brought filters. I brought receipts. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't hesitate. Hello? Do you have any idea what you've unleashed? Rowena's voice was controlled, sharp. I know exactly what you wanted to hide, I answered. She threatened lawsuits, damage to reputation, personal exposure. I leaned closer to the screen. Truth doesn't fear exposure. Silence, the kind that tastes like dread. I pulled open the gift box from earlier. The empty frame, my echo anchor, sat inside, waiting. I'd included a high-res photo of it in the upload, captioned, "Every void is a claim unmade." When I reopened the box, I placed the frame beside my computer. The blank center seemed to glare back at me. Across social media, people commented, I once was an empty frame too. Their words echoed louder than any retort. The frame sat there, silent and potent, louder than any hashtag. Then I found it, a forwarded email in my inbox, auto-sent from the company server. My father's old instruction to me when I first took charge, forwarded by unknown hands. It read, lead with honor. Let no one define your value but your work. Tears stung my eyes, not from sorrow, but from clarity. I drafted a short internal memo to staff. Acknowledgement, apology, promise to rebuild trust, transparency. I hit send. I closed my laptop. My breath deepened. Tonight, the world would see my name. By the time the sun climbed over the city, the inbox was on fire. Overnight, the company's internal threads had turned into a battlefield, only now, the bullets were truths they couldn't dodge. Dana resigned before noon. The memo came through HR, crisp and impersonal, like they thought putting her name at the bottom would make it human. Rowena wasn't as quick. She fought. But that morning, someone, an anonymous internal ally, forwarded me transcripts of private discussions, messages plotting my quiet demotion, dated months before I was even reassigned. It wasn't a reaction, it was premeditated. That changed everything. Support began trickling in, old teammates, former interns, even a few senior managers who once stayed silent. Quiet texts, direct messages, a few calls. They apologized, not for participating, most hadn't, but for standing by. That mattered more than they realized. And when I read the proposal for a new internal whistleblower protection policy, drafted by someone I never met, I exhaled. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it just clicks, send. I turned down the offer to return. They asked if I wanted the same title back, the same desk, the same broken ladder. I said no. That chapter closed when I hit publish. Instead, I met a journalist in a quiet coffee shop the next week. Someone I'd followed for years, who focused less on headlines and more on the fine print that buried lives. I told her what really happened, not just to me, but what the company taught people to normalize. She asked if I wanted revenge. I smiled. No, I just wanted my name back. The story went viral, but not because it was explosive. It resonated because it was familiar. Retirees wrote about being forced out with handshakes and silence. Single moms talked about being passed over for promotions they trained others to get. Veterans, immigrants, caregivers. I posted a note. We fight not because we enjoy it, but because silence costs more. And people didn't see my story as revenge anymore. They called it something else, legacy. A year passed. I now run a small nonprofit helping women re-enter the workforce, those who took time off to care for family, those rebuilding after layoffs, or worse. We don't have a big office. We rent a room at a community center 3 days a week. One afternoon, I sat with a woman named Janelle before her job interview. Nervous, hands shaking like mine did before that board meeting all those years ago. You already belong, I told her. Let them catch up to that truth. She smiled, a little crooked, but stronger than when she walked in. I host resume clinics now. Interview prep nights. I sit with women who think they're too old, too broken, too out of place to start again. I tell them stories, not to impress, but to show the shape of a fight they already know. Every now and then, I see anonymous donations from names I recognize, people from the old team. I never call them out. Quiet gestures speak louder. Last week, I walked out of a local career fair. No applause, no cameras, just sunlight on my face and a calm I hadn't felt in years. That's how I knew I'd won. Then came the package. It was thin, formal. No return address but company letterhead. Inside was a letter from the board, admitting structural oversight, calling my case an institutional failure to protect internal integrity. Their wording, not mine. Along with it, a frame. Inside, a printed cover sheet of my original leak file, titled, in their font, The Integrity Manifesto. I laughed, genuinely. They framed me one last time, I said out loud, and this time, I'll hang it on the wall. I stood there, holding the frame, thinking about everything that was taken, and everything I reclaimed. What we lose isn't always gone. Sometimes, it's just becoming. That evening, in my home office, I pinned a note beside the frame, handwritten in black marker. Your silence is their strategy. Speak anyway. Emails poured in still, strangers thanking me for saying what they couldn't. I didn't reply to all of them. Some didn't need a response. They just needed to know someone had spoken first. I leaned back in my chair, watching the city settle outside. And for anyone who ever felt too small to matter, I'll say this. I was just a sales head. Until I wasn't. I hung the final frame myself, not because I needed closure, but because I built it.